So good evening, everyone. Maazi Ezeoke here speaking to us. This evening, it is a wonderful evening, and from here henceforth is going to be this way. This evening, I would have the privilege of having a man who is contesting for the governorship of Anambra State, and he is the flag bearer of the People's Democratic Party in Anambra State. In this series, has been titled by Injinja Media, it's called Anambra 2021 series, the elections, and is going to be meeting all the candidates contesting for this election. I have the privilege to have a man. Many say he is a very humble individual, a Nigerian politician, a businessman. He is the immediate past president and chief executive officer of Trans Corporation of Nigerian PLC, the Transcorp. I have the privilege here to bring to you, and for our conversation this evening, Valentine Ozigbo. Mr. Valentine, you're welcome to Injinja Media TV.
Thank you so very much. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so we will start quickly. Obviously, I have met you, I know you. Now, let's assume that many viewers who are watching globally today have not met you. They might have been seeing you maybe while you have gone on campaign and all this stuff. Who is Valentine Ozigbo?
Thank you once more. I consider this a great honor and privilege to be given this platform to interact with Anambra, the Anambra, and the Igbo, and the Nigeria. I believe the best way I can describe myself is to talk about my humble beginning and very quickly how God has manifested His grace upon my life, because I consider myself a child of grace. I come from a very humble beginning, son of a retired headmaster, a retired catechist, and my father, by the grace of God, still alive at 94. My mother at 87, both now married for 66 years. I am the last child, seventh child, born on the 7th month, 1970. But a young person growing up at that time, basically in pursuit of excellence, learned the meaning of hard work at tender age, because I was that last born that refused to be called a last born. I would fight if you ventured to call me Odunwa. And so the meaning, what I did actually for me was I tried to do a lot of things to catch up with those who were my elders. And in the process, I learned the meaning of hard work. I did all manner of things to make ends meet, packing sand, reared goats and chicken, and was a farmer also. But in all this, you could actually still see God's manifestation of His grace. So my primary school, I was one of the best students. In the secondary school, I wasn't just one of the best students. I was the only student that was called back to be a teacher, and I taught physics and maths right after my secondary school. And I gained admission into University of Nigeria to study accounting, and I made the best results both in the department and in the faculty. I had my MBA at the same University of Nigeria and eventually qualified as a chartered accountant. I became a fellow of the Institute and also a fellow for the bodies, including Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, Institute of Credit Administration, Institute of Tourism Professionals, and eventually became a member of Institute of Directors of Nigeria. Now, eventually gained the Chevening Scholarship, went to Lancaster University for my second master's, and I had distinction in MSc Finance, and enrolled in another program, Global CEO program, which I did in 3 universities in the world. And at the New York campus of ESA, I was elected the president of the class, which I am till today. And I spent 17 years in the banking industry. And even in my career world, you also again will see a manifestation of God's grace. I was voted as the best staff of Diamond Bank in Nigeria at the time. I became a branch manager at Continental Trust Bank within 5 years. I became a regional manager within 7 years. I eventually rose up to the level of general manager, handled a number of very important responsibilities, from head of embassies and multilaterals, head of international banking, head of offshore liaison, head of global transaction banking. And at some point, though in my first 30 years, I never had international passport, but at some point in my life, handling these responsibilities, I would even travel to over 15 countries a year and had the privilege of developing financial institutions in different countries of the world, in places like China, US, UK, Dubai. And before eventually moving on to become the CEO of Transcorp Hotels, PLC. And within 7 years, I was there. You could tell the story when you visit Transcorp Hilton. We moved to become the best business hotel in Africa consecutively. And then also, I actually became one of the most decorated persons in the world, Black person in the world, because I was voted CEO of the Year and also Hospitality Man of the Year in different countries in different years, and ultimately became the president of the group, which covered the 4 businesses of the group, from power, oil and gas, hospitality, agribusiness. And in all this as well, I was very busy in trying to basically help to give back to the society that formed me. I learned again what a life of impact meant, and I leveraged my foundation and other activities using my Valentine Ozigbo Foundation. I've done a lot of empowerments for youths and women, and but also tried to venture into sports. I formed a company with some friends, which is called Fit and Tricks, and became the biggest promoter of freestyle football in Africa. In the competitions I've organized in the past, I had the privilege of hosting over 30 countries in Nigeria. And also in church, I am a very active member. I was chairman of Unusual Praise, which is the largest Catholic gospel event in Africa. So it's actually when people saw all that I was doing, feeling that discomfort, that I felt, okay, you know what? This is time for us to see how we can change our story as Black people in this world. And I felt the best platform to get it done is to use Anambra to set an example of what governance should be. So I'm here really as now a politician who is looking to change their story for good. And I feel that we're on the right track. And this is much I can say about me for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is indeed. Within this short period of time, you've crisscrossed within so many sectors. Now, if we come back to Anambra State, is there anything you think is not working right that probably propelled you to seeking for the office of the executive governor of Anambra State? And what could that be?
I think it's the other way around. The question should be, is there anything that's working right? Because there's nothing working right. There's absolutely nothing working right. For me, I feel that Anambra should actually be an exemplary state. I've often wondered, is there anything wrong with us as Black people? Why is it that we haven't been able to take steps and build our future in a manner that will give us that sense of pride? Why is it that there is actually no perfect example of how we've contributed so much collectively as a people? We are usually individual champions in what we do. We go to classes, we beat every other person, but collectively, there's nothing to really be so proud of. I mean, there are a few things, but not enough. There's a lot more to be desired. And for me, if you really do deep introspection, you come to a few conclusions. Number one, indeed, nothing is wrong with us. It's really about, about people, intellect, resources. In all these, we have them. But what is lacking for me is ability to entrench leadership, proper leadership, ability to entrench competency and right culture, a culture I call Kaizen, a culture of continuous improvement. And I feel when this is embedded, if we have the right leadership that emphasizes competency within the right culture, a lot can happen. Now, your question is about what is not working. Mm-hmm. I am here not just to talk about the basics that we need to fix, but also what we need to start doing to catch up with the rest of the world. And what are those basics we need to fix first? I have gone around in the period of our campaign. I visited the whole 21 local governments. And when I do visit, I usually would ask a simple question: what do you want from your next governor? I didn't want to just sit in my comfort and decide for Anambra people what they wanted. Let's figure out exactly what they wanted. And in this, you will find out that what we actually need in Omambala may be different from what we need in Demili or from Onisha. What the elders need may be different from what the younger ones need. What the men need may be different from, and in some cases, there are things we may need commonly. But a number of things that resonated very strongly is that three things in particular. Number one, we need security, and today is not working. Number two, we need good roads. Today we don't have them. Number three, we need power. Today we don't have them. And then these are basics. Now, if you want to go even further, we've got to ensure that Anambra become top in education. And we need to build the right infrastructure and make Anambra more competitive as a people known for business. Why are we not prioritizing business? Why is Anambra not the best place to do business when we know that Anambra people are known for business? There's no other tribe, there's no other state you can compare with Anambra when it comes to business. And therefore, we've got to prioritize this. And then can go beyond that. Why are we even not the technology hub in Africa? Why are we not the entertainment hub in Africa? Why are we not the sporting hub in Africa? There's several things that we can do that are not working. There's actually nothing to be proud of in Anambra today. We used to boast of being from Anambra. Thank God you're from Anambra. Are you boasting of anything today? Is there anything? Maybe that's why I'm still in the UK. Come home and see what we're suffering. Anyway, Maazi, I must tell you, there's nothing to be proud of. Why I'm in this is not just to give Anambra people the identity. I actually want us to be totally proud. When I ask you, what's your name? You start by saying, I'm from Anambra State. That's how proud I want everybody to get. Because that's the only time we can give meaning to our diasporans who are walking on the streets of Manhattan and the rest of it. Because today, anywhere you find ourselves, we're still treated as guilty until proven innocent. The only time that story can change is when we fix our home. Let us once more be proud of our home.
Okay.
Thank you.
You've talked about a couple of things that are not working in Anambra State, but let me come to three things. You said when you went around the state, three things they did tell you, and what you've observed that needed fixing. One is security, power, and road. Then I asked, let me stay in the middle because security has its own segment in this conversation. But if I stay with power, how do you intend to intervene in power where you clearly know that power is within the exclusive limits of the Federation?
Thank you. For me, I'm also fortunate to have been an active participant and player in the power industry. What we can do within our circle of influence, there are things that we actually may not be within our circle, but we can orchestrate the changes that are there. You want a governor that is not going to be giving you excuses. pushing the strings to make sure the right things are done. And that's why you need somebody with the right knowledge and contact and connection to orchestrate things into happening. You see, advocacy is part of governance. So we'll come to that. But in Nigeria, we have the Genco, we have the discos, and we have the transmission. What we suffer is technical and commercial misalignments, where you see a Genco has installed capacity, maybe 1,000 megawatts, for several reasons, only able to generate half of it. And ultimately, it's not actually the entire that can be transmitted because of dilapidated infrastructure. And then move on to discos, you have so much commercial losses to the extent that some are actually stolen. We call them electricity theft. And ultimately, maybe they're collecting for equivalent of 200 megawatts, whereas there's installed of 1,000 from the Genco side. If you look at all this value chain, you start to see where the problem is. And until we fix these things, in fact, commercialize the grid system and create sub-grids, we don't have to have one singular, I'll come to, I want to quickly come to Anambra now. Okay. I want to quickly come to Anambra. I'm using this to paint a picture of the things that we need to do at the federal level. But the right governor can actually still look at these things and see how the change can happen. But in Anambra, we're also fortunate. We're fortunate that we do have key players who are in the Genco. We have players who are also in the disco. As a matter of fact, the owner of any distribution companies from Anambra State, there's no reason why we can't come to a table and negotiate our way out. And
but what are you going to negotiate with him? What are you going to negotiate with him? I believe you're referring to Emekofo. Whereas he can only evacuate what he gets. If the nation is not generating enough and you are not allowed to generate, how is that going to be? Because obviously I'm sitting down here listening to you. Great idea, but I'm thinking, how are you going to make much impact on electricity generation without?
Let me explain that. Let me explain that. If you engage with someone like Obi Jackson, who has enormous capacity that he can bring to bear in Anambra State, and you want to solve problem in clusters, let's take Newi cluster or Nisha cluster. What do you find? Leveraging what we call eligible customer framework, where actually, you know what? The Genco can supply direct to the end user. But in doing this, you need to carry the disco along because it's within their circle of licensing. And so that's the negotiation there. It's about, let me supply to Onisha direct, and let me pay to you what is due to you. That negotiation can happen. We've tried to do this, and we've actually done this in a number of areas where you see a Transcorp Power, for instance, sending grid to a UBA house, and there's instances of such. Basically, all you need is the understanding, the knowledge, and the willingness to come together, because we may not be able to solve all the Anambra problems at once using the grid system. Can go direct and supply in clusters where they are needed, provided there are good understanding and agreement. But beyond that, we can actually now go into the off-grid system where you can leverage solar and what have you to begin to solve problems and incrementally reduce the issue while still paying attention to what's happening at the federal level, which may be totally outside of your influence, but through advocacy, you can orchestrate the change that's required.
So I think I do agree with that. Now I come to maybe more, have you considered this, maybe a more practical approach? Let's take, for instance, you mentioned off-grid. All the secondary school, all the tertiary schools owned by the state in Anambra State could actually go off-grid. They could actually go on solar, and the state government could power this. Yes. So, is that something that you are considering, that once, if elected governor, that this is part of the things you can do probably within the first year?
Incidentally, what will even shock you is that some people from Anambra are the biggest players in that subsector. and discussions are already underway. Once there is a will, once you have a focused leadership, there's no problem we can't solve. Trust me. It's about bringing that can-do spirit into what we're doing, and especially when we have the right connections already. And for me, I see power as the greatest enabler. It is one thing that will help us in every other thing we're trying to do, be it agriculture, be it technology, be it business, be it leisure. And so with this, we're going to be focusing heavily on this and ensuring that indeed, we bring all our wherewithal, including putting government money, because it's that important. So yes, I intend to leverage off-grid solar solutions to solve incremental problems, especially in sectors that are important, principally education and healthcare.
Okay. Now, if I come back to, based on these things, the people, because the reason why I am a representative of the people. I speak to the street. I am in the street. I understand the street. And I speak the street language. Therefore, people watching here are the street. Then I tell, if you talk about road, now, is it that what your government is going to do to build more roads, new roads, or to repair the old ones? Because it appears what in the last couple of years the state is doing is to just maintain road. I don't know any new road being constructed in Anambra State. So, having gone round Anambra State now during your campaign in the last 1 year, and having seen all the areas, what are you going to promise in Anambra here are the things you're going to do in your first year in office, if elected?
Maazi, I must say to you, I wish all we've been doing was maintain existing roads. I wish that was the case. We've not been building any new road, and we've not been maintaining existing roads. The entirety of Anambra's road have been forgotten. When perhaps last time you visited Anambra, you probably were lucky. Now that the rain has come, I have some friends who I left this morning in Enugu. I flew into Lagos, where I'm making this call from. And 5 hours later, I called them. They're yet to get to Oka. 5 hours. They can't cross Amasi Road. They got there, got stuck, made a U-turn, went back to Oji River, drove through Fuma, only to get underway. And of course, the car even spoiled on the way. That's the story everywhere. If you try to venture Oka, which is our capital city, you'll be shocked. Within just traversing within Oka metropolis. Go to Onitsha, the biggest market we have. There isn't a road. Go to Nnewi, the industrial hub that we should be protecting, where we should be emphasizing access road to market. My brother, we have abandoned governance, especially where roads are concerned. I really am not interested so much about new roads. The existing ones must work, must be functional. I'm not about the ego. Let this be our Valentine constructed this road. That's not what I'm interested in. I just need Anambra people to be happy. Do you know what we lose? Have you had to sit back and calculate, quantify what we lose? Is it a car that's being depreciating faster than anything else? Is it the consumption of fuel? There's so much waste that if only you understand what we save by going to a location that will take you typically 10 minutes, 20 minutes. You're spending 2-3 hours. If you understand what you could have done with that amount of time, how much waste that we suffer. So what I want us to do is to get our roads working. So I will actually emphasize more about getting them fixed, getting the potholes covered, getting the erosions controlled, so people can move from point A to point B faster, more efficiently, and without rancor. so that
Wow.
together we can become a happier person. Now, let me also share this with you. There's so much you can do, especially now that we've accumulated so huge. People say maybe up to 100 billion in debts already. That number has accumulated. And so I am worried that I'll get into office and we may not be able to, in the first year, generate the amount of resources to enable us to do a lot of things we have in mind. So how do we then solve the problem? How we want to solve the problem is using common sense. Let's bring innovation and creativity here. And we know that thankfully, Anambra people, they're so blessed. They have people with enormous resources who are also willing just enough to their village. Let me share with you how we intend to do that. For me, and this is, I visited Ojoto a few months ago when we were still running for primary, and I witnessed firsthand, people that were constructing 5 different roads at the same time. I was so impressed, and I was touched, and I made a statement, and I'm going to leave that statement. And that statement was, if I come back as governor to Ojoto, and by the grace of God I will calculate the length of road, because I felt it also met the standard that I liked. I'll calculate the length of road. If it turns out to be, for instance, 5 kilometers, I will start off with constructing 5-kilometer road in Ojoto. And I said to them, I'm doing this because these individuals came home to do this. Now, what do I want to achieve? I want to achieve where it becomes competitive, where people are bragging about number of roads they've constructed, because we're going to celebrate them. We're going to, on your media and other media, we're going to come together. We'll give them access to different things that will shock them just by doing these right things. And by so doing, we can move on from, when Governor Gige was in the office, it was built on average of about 60-kilometer roads a year. When Governor B came to office, he took that to another level to about 100-kilometer, roads a year. With what I've just said here, we can move beyond the 100-kilometer roads a year to maybe 150, as the case may be. The important thing here is that within the limited resources we have, we'll build some roads. And with the partnership we're going to be forming, we will get a number of people to also be part of that governance. And through this, we'll achieve a lot more through qualitative and quantitative means. And I must say this, you may find locations where you don't find very rich people that can, so no part will be forgotten. But by the time we've done this, the rest of the Anambra will be left undone with little for us to use government money to intervene. So ultimately, I feel that within the first term of my office, we will have Anambra roads back to where we can celebrate Anambra roads.
Okay, so now you see part of the reason it appears I'm dwelling so much on Anambra roads is because I know many years ago, Anambra boasted to be one of the, or rather the best state with, or the state with the best network of roads. Today, correct, that is no longer the case. Yes. Obviously, partly part of the problem, the federal road, but even the state road is not in the best of shape. Now, yes, if we go back to the time of Chris Ngige, everybody will know. You talk about Ufuma, your village or your community, Umuchu Achina, Ezenifite, Ekulobia, Ibuku Road, yes, that road was done by Chris Ngige. Now, that was done in 2000, it was finished by P2B in 2006. But if you look back now, that is virtually over 15 years, and that road is still standing with very, very minimal potholes. Having gone, please here, I want specific. Having gone round Anambra State, haven't seen the bad road, in the first year, what specific road do you think, if I get into office, these are the roads I will start to tackle within the first 1 year, because they are the heartbeat of ease of communication, ease of traversing the state as a whole?
So I will actually not be focusing just on the state roads. There are actually federal roads we need to touch. Any roads that are leading us to the neighbors, from Anambra to Enugu. I'm thankful that MTN is stepping up now in dualizing in that dual road of Onitsha to Onitsha down to Oka to Enugu road. That it has already been awarded. But the Amansi road is one road that I need to prioritize. The roads that will lead us to Onitsha from different parts of Anambra, the roads that will lead us to Nnewi, the commercial, the industrial hubs where businesses are thriving. And if you come to Omambala axis, or in fact, even Oka North, the axis, we also intend to, because we make commitments to them as we work campaigning. And of course, if you come to the older Gotha part, that part has already been totally abandoned. Even the EL axis, even the Equisigo side. So that the issue is there's so much to be done within such a small, time frame. But the key priority for me will be two. Number one, which roads have the greatest economic value, where we are going to, leverage much where the traffic is high. And number two, which roads can we also partner with the existing and influential Anambrarians, so that as they keep doing, we're matching, so that way we drive the competitiveness that we're seeking for, so that more money will flow in to complement what we have to build the roads. So this is how we intend to map them out. And we've actually, I'll share again a copy of the manifesto, so you begin to see the specific promises we've made. And with this, I can tell you that what we failed to achieve in the first 1-2 years, we can achieve in the subsequent, 2 years before my second term in office. One thing I guarantee is that in the first term in office, you will be very impressed that we would have achieved what the current administration could achieve in 8 years on roads construction.
Okay, let me quickly move to something. Obviously, you've just touched on it now. Is the next point I wanted to speak on. I have taken time to look at your manifesto, which many of my viewers will be seeing on the screen now. This is the manifesto, obviously, Anambra Chawapo. Now, I want you to, first of all, explain to those who have not read this manifesto, what do you mean, Anambra Chawapo? What is the philosophical underpinning in that message?
Yeah, thank you. Chawapo simply means blossom. Anambra is considered the light of the nation. And as the light of the nation, we actually should usher, exemplary leadership. But it looks like that light has been dimmed for such a long time. So what do we do to get Anambra to blossom again? How do we get Anambra to indeed shine again? How do we get Anambra to be great again? That is the underpinning. That's the meaning of the Chawapo. And to do that, what we've tried to do is explore ways and manner to, come up with practical steps that will enable us to achieve that vision. How do we, through partnership, through openness, through transparency, through accessibility, ensure that Anambra is fixed in terms of developmental agenda, where we take care of our people, from men, from women to youth, from the aged to the young. How do we ensure that we're able to cater for our businesses and make Anambra more competitive? So in doing this, we devised 3 approaches that will enable us to achieve the Anambra Chawapo dream. First approach is the cluster approach. What do we mean here? We may not be able to solve our problems at the same time. Why don't we prioritize? Why don't we focus on areas that we know that not only are we able to shift our focus there, but through economies of scale, this we can do collectively, can enable us to achieve the quick wins and the sustainable growth that we're deserving. And so we want to focus on a place like Onitsha. What can we do to make Onitsha functional? It's not just Onitsha. And when we fix a place like Onitsha, we're not just taking care of Onitsha people. We're taking care of every Igbo man who traverses Onitsha. So what do we need to do to get that working? So we look at roads, we look at gas infrastructure, we look at technology and broadband, look at making sure that even the port system around is developed in such a manner that people who are importing can also ensure that their imports will then go through less logistical problems and again ultimately become more competitive. The key word here is competitiveness. How do we run businesses in Anambra in a manner that we can make more profit, sustainable profit, than running it elsewhere, including Lagos or Abuja or anywhere else? Why can we not create an Anambra of a dream where testimonies from businesses within Onitsha can give us the signposts that we require? And we focus on Nnewi axis, Nnewi here, Lekusigo axis, as an industrial hub. How do we solve, for instance, the power challenge there, such that you don't have an innocent vehicle manufacturing or the tummy manufacturing or different manufacturers building their own power systems there? Can we not find a common power solution that can enable them share costs? When you have shared services, they lower the cost and they're able to produce even more at lower cost. And Anambra becomes more competitive because it's not just about comparing ourselves with other states in Nigeria. If you're producing anything within Anambra State and it's cheaper to import from Ghana or from China, it doesn't make sense because the import was number at some point your business is simply going to die. The only way it can be sustainable is that we work with you, we make businesses more comfortable and more competitive. And that's why we want to do things through clustering approach. And we'll go to Oka and the city as another cluster. What can we do to make it a better capital city? We'll go to Anambra axis, where we are very good with agriculture. We can take this to another level, focus on the input, the processing, the exporting, the storage, and then thank God we now have the cargo airport. How can we leverage that maximally? And when we do this, you'll be shocked how much Anambra will be on the map. That's the child dream. And then in the older Guata can be the technology hub. So that's one side, or that's just one approach. Because the way we do things, by the time you do things through horizontal approach and through vertical approach, you must get things right. If you don't get it this way, you get it that way. So we have the sector approach as well. Under the sector approach, how do we prioritize sectors that are important? On the human capacity index, education and health is so important. We all know the importance of it. What do we do under education to make education more affordable, more qualitative, and more relevant? And with their examples, and we can leverage not just what we have here, but also power from the diaspora. Also on the healthcare side, what do we do to transfer skills and knowledge and practices that our people already used to in the US and the UK and the rest of the world into Anambra? How can we not set up a diagnosis center so that Anambra can become a home for health tourism? Why do we still have to go travel abroad for things that we can handle locally here? And then look at the other sectors like the power we've mentioned, the infrastructure we've mentioned, the commerce and the sporting. So that's how we intend to prioritize. We do this is given on how they translate to improving the lives of women and improving the lives of the youth. And now we do have the final approach, which is the partnership approach. How do we leverage with the resources our people have amassed to turn around our state? Looking at roads, I've given you an example with roads. Education can as well be another. Health can be another. Can you not adopt a school in your community? Can we not make you brag about what you've done in your local community, such that when you're doing stuff and we recognize you're doing stuff, we're matching it with additional stuff, so that to whom much is also given, much will be expected.
Thank you very much. I mean, in that area, I'm not a newbie. I have done, and I'm still continuing doing. Now, let me come to one sector that is very dear to me. That is the educational sector. Obviously,
yes.
That's one sector that I have personally intervened and continuing to intervene by means of providing structures and by means of providing digital learning devices. Now, before now, Anambra grew rapidly under Peter Obi to become, when you talk about WAEC and you talk about NECO, Anambra became the top. But in the last couple of years, we've seen a slide where Abia has somewhat taken over. Now, what are the critical things you would have to do or you will do based on your manifesto that will help Anambra State again to leapfrog into that top position and top ranking?
If you want to do conduct an analysis of how Governor Peter Obi succeeded, there are a few things he did right. Few practical steps he took, and which I don't only intend to replicate, I intend to do more. First was partnership with missions. Transfer of schools to missions, they actually are well equipped to.
But that has been done. That has been done already. So
there's still more to be done. And it's not just about the transfer, it's also the support that continues to come from the government. The financial support that continues to come. A lot of these schools have been abandoned. It's not just about transfer, they've been totally abandoned. And if you also would pay attention to a lot of other little things, visiting the school. Have you ever seen a governor visit any school? Do you know what it means to, there's a body language you bring. You actually can inspire a level of behavior by what I call on the job. When I used to run any business, I don't sit in my comfort of my office to manage any company. I go to the Gemba, we call it the Gemba, the workplace, where the things are happening. You study, you check how they perform, how they conform, there's several things you can point out. And when you set one example, everything will change. So when you abandon governance and expect magic can happen, it's not going to happen. So there are those little practical steps, you go to a school, you actually chase the teachers away. If I'm sitting here with students, you tell me what we need to do to improve here. Hearing from those students and taking steps that are practical. I mean, I can go on and on, but let's even go beyond that, because I'm not hoping to replicate and be another Peter Obi. I want to be a better Peter Obi. So let me tell you what I intend to do going forward. My dear brother, I spoke about three things already when I made my initial comment on education. I said affordability, quality, relevance. If you can get these two things right, we will be competing with the rest of the world. Affordability is really about putting more money to support education and making sure over time, as we increase our pie on GDP and revenue, that you begin to shift more resources, because it's that important. You must fund it. If you don't pay teachers well, if you don't train them well, you're going to get bullshit. I'm sorry to use that word in your channel, but BS. The point here, therefore, is how do we ensure that sufficient resources are voted in? UNESCO sets a standard of 25% of budget. We don't even get up to 10% or less than 7%. What do we do?
Let me interject here. Are you going to implement that benchmark?
Ultimately, I may not start from year one, but ultimately, I've been targeting to achieve that before I leave office. And the essence of it is to put your money where your mouth is, where you consider important, because you can't say education is important and you neglect that. So secondly, on quality, how do you achieve quality? For me, it's about the quality of the teaching. How do you do the trainers? How do you emphasize performance in what we do? How do you even have a ranking of schools where you are not just rewarding those that are doing well, but penalizing those that are not doing well? And ensuring that everybody sits.
Are you going to be one of those to, a governor that will sometimes go into classrooms to teach or to supervise?
I'm already a born teacher, so trust me, I'm going to be teaching. I'm going to be supervising. I mean, this is sort of like it comes natural with me, and so be rest assured. And you better sit up as a teacher, and otherwise you can lose your job on the day you're messed up. You're messing up, and
Now,
I will be taking I'll be taking a lot of feedback from the students as well.
okay, let me quickly jump to something. Would you tell us more about Anambra State IGR and how you probably intend to improve on the IGR? Because here, you obviously you are aware and you've been following these narrative and conversation about value-added tax.
Mm.
Now, and when we look at the value-added tax, where the Southeast sit is very, very poor. Now, if we just oppose that to the revenue being generated by states, you can find out that the narrative is driven that every state generates your own tax and live by it, that means there is crisis looming. Now, bearing that in mind, how do you intend to address it? If and when the court decides, obviously it's going to be when after the election, and there's going to be crisis. And if that happens, how do you intend to deal with that?
Okay, I would like to touch on the educational part because I know the importance of it, but then I come to the IGR and the VAT discussion. Now, just very quickly, I've spoken about affordability, I've spoken about quality, I'm also talking about relevance. How do we ensure that the curriculum is sweet, such that what we are coming out as end product, the graduates, the people who are leaving school, are able to solve our problems. They gain practical knowledge that can get them to the Gemba and start solving problems. How do we tweak, if for instance, we want to make Anambra a technology hub, how do we go back to primary school to see how we can change the curriculum so that even programming languages can start to be taught and very tender age. So over time, they can become an expert in these fields. And when they come out, they're not just solving a Anambra problem, they're solving global problem. Why can we not have a Mark Zuckerberg out of Anambra State? So this is so important to me, and it's part of what I'm going to be pursuing. Now let's go up to the issue of IGR. Today, we earn about 80 billion in a year. 80 billion comprising of FAC of about 58 billion, and then the rest being internally generated revenue. And over time, remain like flat. And so let's even assume we generate about 30 billion a year, plus the other 80 billion. Now, that's about 240 billion. We need to keep asking, what do we do with this money? What if I ask you now for Governor Obiano, I'd like to know precisely how we utilize this money. And this is why openness, accountability, transparency is so important in governance, so that a number of people can understand how their money is being channeled. But for me, how do you improve the pie? How do you increase the IGR? There are a number of things you can do. Number one is not necessarily to tax your people more. It's not about increasing the rate of tax, but rather increasing the volume of businesses, the GDP. How do you attract more resources into Anambra, the FDIs, the local investors? And there's a lot we can do in that regard. If we make Anambra more competitive, they find good testimonies that they can run their businesses safely, they have good roads, and when they run businesses, they can make more money. Trust me, I love more business will come set up here, and that helps us to curb unemployment issues. And so it's that important. And when you've done this, what you find is that our GDP begins to grow, and we, even at the same flat rate, you can earn more in terms of IGR. And we also can do more by just cutting waste. There's so much wastefulness in our system, leakages in our system. I can tell you that we are earning maybe even twice how much we are recording. So how do we ensure we plug those leakages and bring more money into the system? And ultimately, how do we ensure that we spend money right? We're putting money where they're important, and where you don't need to spend money, waste money, you don't need to spend money there. And these are actually some of the areas where Governor Peter Obi did so well that he was able to inherit a lot of mess when he got into office and did a lot, still saved over 75 billion. But unfortunately, I'm going to be inheriting debts, mountain of debts. And so I'm under pressure to be more prudent or more conservative. I have no option, but thank God my training has prepared me for it. Because if you want to check what I studied and what I've done as a banker and as a chartered accountant, it's about accountability, it's about prudence, about managing things like bankruptcy, because Anambra is almost in a bankrupt situation now. Now, about VAT discussion, trust me, it is part of a bigger discussion we should be having. That discussion is Nigeria working as presently architected and constituted? Does this make sense? What does Nigeria working mean? What do we need to do to make Nigeria work? How do we reset Nigeria such that we can go back to at least where we used to be when Southeast, for instance, was being studied as one of the fastest growing in the world? The one fundamental thing we can't shy away is how to restructure this country, how to make the component parts become more productive. So we've got to create a more competitive environment where merit and competency is the order of the day. We can't continue to sacrifice competency on the altar of mediocrity. And to achieve this, there are a lot we need to restructure. And the tax system, ideally, typically, if you want to actually succeed as a country, then people should be able to be rewarded by how much productive they've become. And so VAT is an output tax. It's about is an output of what has happened within the particular environment. So it makes sense that actually states should collect. Yes, for now in the interim, if you throw this shock into the system, people issues, you may have more problems to deal with. So how do you transit to where you can get to a system that works? So I am all for restructuring, and I won't be worried too much because Anambra has what it takes to compete. Even if we're maybe disadvantaged now, I know what we need to do to close that disadvantage and eventually become, a pride of Nigeria. So what I actually want to say, ideologically, we should move to where if you end this, go, eat and earn from it, from what you've, the output of your exercise, of your effort. And that way, you'll begin to see innate abilities, talents that are hidden. You'll be shocked how much productive the northern states will become, the southern states will become far more than what we're seeing today. Let's be competing on many things, on how much we're able to generate, how much secure we become, how much we're able to give back to various societies.
Okay, thank you very much on that. Then I come to something many people watching online now, and many people, like I said to you, as we say in Igbo, onye chi no ka ihe nọ na ya ji tinye ntị ka ọnụ ugeri danda, and you can know hear the ugeri dandas. Now, one of the things that ails the people is when they see their money being wasted by those that govern them in view of convoys. Now you are vying for Anambra State governorship, and eventually, if you win, are you making the people a promise that you are going to cut down on the waste and the level of convoy that people see on the street?
Yes. Let me share something that is so fundamental to me, which I needed to also hopefully not just understand and learn from. I consider myself a global Kaizen champion. Kaizen is change for the better. I use this word continuous improvement when I made my introduction. I am an advocate of continuous improvement. I feel the biggest disservice we've done to ourselves is to celebrate status quo. We just rejoice in the past and the present, and not asking ourselves, how can we improve on the future? And the moment we start to question, asking the right questions on everything and anything, you'll be shocked the extent we can go and grow as a people. In fact, if there's anything that separates us, Igbo people from Black people, this is one thing. We've got to change our structure, our philosophy, our culture. And imbibing continuous improvement culture, philosophy, it is so crucial. And one of the key elements of this is cutting what we call Muda, Mura, and Muri. Let's focus on Muda. Muda means waste. Cutting waste is so crucial to our survival. And waste is not just about monetary waste, it's everything wasteful. For instance, I tell a young student or a young adult, how did you spend your yesterday? Just tell me how you've spent your yesterday. You find that you would have spent so much on social media, so much on frivolity, and slept the rest of the period, and eaten the rest of the period, and conversed. So I start asking, can you try to check between those and among those time you spent, the useful parts? Just shift your mindset, calculating carefully, taking 1 hour into the useful region. You will be shocked how much improvement you witness in a year in your life. So taking things to that personal level, and you go into like a function. When I go to a function, I don't spend time calling titles and names on people, and then we haven't even done anything. Just to break cola nuts, we spent 2 hours already. And I leave such meeting and ask myself, how much waste we've created here? And I go into governance, just to approve a CFO, certificate of occupancy. You spend 6 years, 3 years. What is going on here? Do you know how much we can improve by just enhancing velocity? That you can transfer title in a second, in a minute, in a week. Do you know how you can make Anambra more competitive? So wastefulness is something we must curb and cut across all levels. So bring it down to your question about things that people do. Of course, selling convoy is necessary. If you expect that I will travel and I'm stuck in traffic and I can't function as a governor, I need to curb the traffic. I need to solve the problem generally. But there comes a time for better security. You need to go with minimal number that will ensure that you're protected. And over time, because you need to be safe first to now curb the problem, you need to go inside to solve the problem than be on the outside. So because it's easy as a politician to tell, oh no, I'm going to cut out, there's no convoy. No, I don't speak like that. I'll tell you what is practical. Over time, I want to get to where I want to eventually get to where a governor may not even need any convoy whatsoever. But the starting point of it is that you go with minimal that you require, not people who have no value to add, not people who have nothing to contribute, being on the bandwagon. And you get there, you're going to be asking, who sent you here? Why are you here? You should be busy doing something else elsewhere. We've got to cut waste across all levels. That's what I can promise you.
Okay, I mean, obviously, I'm not expecting that a governor will not go without police, but I think sometimes it's
we overdo it, yeah.
When you see a governor moving with 30 to 40 cars and all these cars will be fueled, I mean, obviously, I don't know how many, if half of it are riddled with men with AK-49 and 47 and all that. So that's regular. So now let me, because we are now in this fire, let me come down to something very critical. Are you still campaigning in Anambra State as it is today?
My brother, it is heartbreaking, the story that we experience in Anambra State today. There was a joke that I watched on social media where a certain young man was accosted by somebody with a gun. And, I don't know how they got into the exchange. And the victim was asking, please, who are you? Are you a bandit? He said, no. Are you a herdsman? No. Are you a terrorist? No. Are you a Boko Haram? No. Are you a policeman? No. So who are you? I said, well, I'm just a simple armed robber. And I stood up and hugged him. So where have you guys been? Thank God that I didn't know there's armed robbers in Nigeria. And so he was so happy that it was only, accosted by somebody with, propensity to commit lesser evil than what we are experiencing today. We see a scenario where innocent people who are not even politicians, it's not like politicians deserve to be murdered on the street. People who can't hold a fly, people who are legendary, who are the kind of role models we seek in society are hacked to death. For what? No reason. And you don't even know the motive. That's the Anambra that we have today. And I'm so heartbroken to talk about my own state in this form. And so, out of respect, in order not to appear insensitive, we had to curtail, and also not to put a lot of our people at risk. We had to curtail our public gathering. So we still move around. We still do the door-to-door. We still engage. So we're still campaigning. We're still using media. We're still using, online. We're engaging because we can't give up. We obviously have to. In fact, the more we witness these things, the more angry we become, the more the resolve gets stronger. Because if you don't end the bad leadership, if you don't end bad governance, you can be rest assured we're going to have worse scenario. And so it better stop now. I think it's time for Anambra people and to Igbo people to actually say enough is enough of this nonsense. It is time for us to...
While I'm not trying to get to finger pointing here, what do you understand? Obviously, you do not have the security details of a sitting governor who has access to avalanche of information. However, as the candidate of a major and a leading party, obviously you will be availed with a certain level of information, maybe that, better than what me here sitting in the media probably have access to. Now, having looked at it, based on the information you have and based on what you have seen on ground, what do you think is the issue and how do you think this could be solved?
For me, what we are going through is a pointer to what we need to be doing on the security side. How do we improve the working tools? How do we improve the welfare of our security operatives? How do we actually restructure such that you basically are more accountable? You take full responsibility for what happens within your jurisdiction. How do we ensure that the intelligence is also provided, that they're able to garner sufficient intelligence and they are motivated to do the right thing? How do we ensure that people are brought to book as quickly as possible as a way of preventing and proactively managing situations like this? But beyond that is, how do we also ensure that we solve problems from the root cause? Some of the problems are economical, some are pure criminality, some are ideological. However, we need to start to solve problems in these different dimensions and ultimately get to Anambra of our dream, where people and property can be safe. So this is something I need to fundamentally say. Now, for me, unfortunately, in a civilized society, someone of my nature, caliber, who as a candidate of a major party should be abreast and briefed functionally, statutorily about the security situation, but not the case. Everything still goes down to the government in power, either the state government or the federal. And so they should help us with intelligence. It's not good to second guess, but clearly one thing I can tell you is that when crimes happen, question here is to whose benefit? Who stands to benefit? We're in a political season, and therefore this obviously is politically motivated. And who stands to benefit? Obviously, it cannot be a party that obviously will require that under a level playing field can easily win this election. And today, everybody understands that PDP is a party to beat in Anambra State. It's the most popular, it's the most acceptable, ABGA has even failed, and APC obviously not on ground, even with all the defection happening. APC is the most unacceptable party, maybe based on poor performance from and the way Igbos feel marginalized under the current administration. And the agitations are enormous. But I can tell you, the PDP therefore stands to benefit the most. So what we are hoping for is a peaceful environment. So I think without finger pointing, let us be asking the parties that whoever may be creating, first of all, identify who is creating this, leverage intelligence and investigate and bring people to book, and so that people don't go scot-free, get away with murder like it's been going on. And one thing for me is I know the importance of security environment like Anambra. A lot of businesses can thrive. The people can't visit. Foreigners can't even imagine coming when you have a chaotic environment like what we're witnessing today. But I'm hoping, I've also been in touch in my own level. What I've tried to do is I embrace it up. I'm engaged with the right people. I've spoken to Army, police, DSS, asking what is going on. I need answers. I need solutions here. And I'm thankful that steps are being taken, not as proactive as I would expect, but at least there are some steps being taken. And we've also insisted that there must be a level playing field, and a number of people cannot be cajoled into, be scared into not coming out to vote. We must ensure that people are mobilized, because one thing I know they're trying to achieve here is to scare people into coming out so that they can have their way to write the result. And who's been trying to write the result, but God forbid, it's not going to happen in Anambra State.
Okay, so now there are two issues here. One is, you obviously alluded that this is, the politicians have hands in it. And there is another mix to it, that certain people are saying no election in Anambra State. We will boycott this election in the state. Now, today, the Southeast governors met in Enugu. Incidentally, there is no representative from Anambra State, not the governor, not the deputy. Now, and they are talking about having Ebubagu, which is the regional security outfit, acting or in the same level with Amotekun to take, to be active before the end of year. That is as contained in their communique issued and read out by the governor of Ebonyi State in the person of Chief Dave Omahe. Now, having looked at it, some are beginning to wonder, why is Anambra State not so much interested when it comes to issues that has to do with the whole of southern Nigeria? You may recall that the whole southern governors met in Enugu about a week or so ago. Incidentally, again, not a single governor from the southeast was present there, except the host, being Ugwanyi of Enugu State. Having looked at all this, what is it that you would do as it concerns coming together of the governors, be it Southern, be it the Southeast Governors Forum, to foster unity and progress, to ensure that, when such meetings are called, that if elected governor of Anambra State, we won't be watching on the news that you're going to be absent without having the temerity to explain to the people of the state why you were absent?
I honestly don't know what to say here, because I've been asking these questions. I can't find the answer. It doesn't make sense to me. It's not just about this security thing. Maybe I need to remind you who Anambra is. Anambra is actually seen as the headship of the Igbos. It's the Igbo. Anambra should be calling the meeting. So not leading is first point of abdication. And not even allowing yourself to be led is even worse. Being totally absent, I've asked this question, and what could be the reason? I think I can allude to three. One, character, competence, party platform. When it comes to character, you've got to prioritize your people. I feel the only way to get governance right is to first of all ask, this decision I'm about to take, how does it sit with God? Next, how does it sit with your people? How would my people feel about this? Before you bring your own personal interest and comfort. Once you don't get this priority right, you've got the wrong character to lead. Competence. Maybe because some of the people don't understand the importance of security. Maybe. Otherwise, how else do you explain it? Or the importance of regional integration, the capacity to comprehend that there are certain things you can do as a solo entity, but together you can solve commonly. And party platform is so important. ABGA was meant to be a regional party, but rather from being a one state party is dying off. And today we have no option than to bury it. There's only one party that Igbos that actually can feel that sense of belonging, and it's PDP. And so when you're coming from a minority, maybe my governor sees, oh, well, I'm not a member of PDP, all the other governors are PDP, and some maybe who stole the mandate and APC. And so since I don't belong to any of the two, so let them do their thing. And so they need to come together. So for me, I think PDP should take over Anambra State and ultimately recover Imo and Nebony. And together, there will be things that will naturally force you together, either as PDP governors or people of the shared interest. And this is something that's so crucial in solving our problems at the regional level. So I feel that you should be directing the questions to the right persons, why they are not doing the right thing, because I will provide the needed leadership. Anambra people will once more be proud of their identity when I become the next governor.
I would write this question down when I invite the candidate of the APGA. I would ask him this same question, and I'm expecting that Anambra would have an answer. Now, you mentioned PDP, and you talked about as if PDP is doing excellently well. Then I say, when last did you visit Aba? Do you think PDP is doing well in Aba? Well, in Abia State. Let me using Aba as a yardstick.
Quite frankly, I was in Aba a few days ago. If you checked my postings, you'll see that I hosted Anambra in Aba, the sports club there. But before then, I was also in another part of Abia State where I was pleasantly surprised with the level of road networks that have been constructed there. And so what I figured out is perhaps because most of especially the major road traversing Enugu to Umuahia to Aba to Port Harcourt is considered federal road, and needed attention has not been given to it. And I didn't go through all the Aba metropolis to judge how things are there, but I do know that there are a lot more that can be done. And quite frankly, as a governor, I'll be drawing attention with my colleagues to see what more that can be done. But what I find here is that the part that I covered, and I was also, again, pleasantly surprised that from Aba to Enugu, part of those roads have been done, obviously, mostly from the federal side. But within the area that I covered, I was pleasantly surprised that the certain length of roads and the quality that I saw was impressive. And all you needed to do is, navigate through, and you will see that indeed the governor has done well in those regards, but can obviously do more in a major city like Aba.
Well, there are so many videos that we've seen with Aba, and I think within the PDP caucus, and if elected governor, obviously he's still going to be in office when you'll be sworn in. Please do intervene and whisper to him, whichever ear that he can hear best, that Aba needs attention and Aba is becoming something that no Igbo man is so proud of. Now, let me quickly, before we round up, obviously, it's been a pleasure listening to you. And those of you watching us, I'm speaking to Val Ozigbo, who is the PDP candidate in the forthcoming Anambra election. Now, again, I have heard other speakers say what they are bringing into this election is they have presence in Anambra, they have this in Anambra, they have this in Anambra, and go and ask others what they have in Anambra investment-wise. If I may push that question to you, what interest and investment do you have in Anambra?
Investment in people. I am so proud of what I've done so far with my people, especially given that I'm talking about what I've done with my own resources, not government resources. And thankfully, I wish you could ask some from those people I'm running with who have held government offices and amassed a lot of wealth. Yes. So let me share this with you. Many years ago, I started a foundation, my Valentine Ozigbo Foundation, and we have a four-pronged process. Number one, I was involved in leading what I call leadership training. Leadership training is getting leadership experts. I've flown people from the US, UK, and some parts of Nigeria into my village. What is the essence? Let's speak to the younger ones in a manner that can inspire them into greatness. We know that investment in people is the biggest thing you can do. Let's ensure that they can change their story for good. And I can tell you, and for me, if I train 100 people and only 10 get useful in their life is enough for me. Okay, so I move from there. We'll go into the empowerment, where I do what I call business plan competition, and I did it severally. So what I do, because I know that there are limited job opportunities out there, what you can do is let people be their own job creator. Help them to become better entrepreneurs. So they go onto my website and they fill different business ideas, and we actually have independent educators who assess them. And then the first prize get 2 million naira, second prize get 1 million, third prize get 1 million. And it's not just the money that I give to them, but also the mentorship that we follow. What that does for them is, earn a living and become an employer of labor. So if you can't even get sufficient job, because what you find is that every single time you visit a village, there are people looking for a job. You guys become job creators yourselves. So that's the second part of what I was doing. And number three is the talent hunt. There are people who may not have gone to school to become high flyers. They may also not have had great business ideas, but God has given them some other talents that they can earn a living with. So it could be acting, dancing, singing, comedy. So we started a talent hunt competition. And this time I would fly people from different parts of Nigeria to inspire them. Usually, if you speak to Kanayo, usually my chief judge, and he comes with other Nollywood people and major artists, and we watch these guys perform. We correct them on stage. We handhold them. Like when I invested in a movie called Merry Men, I used one of the best, the winner in the competition, to become part of the Merry Men, and that gave him bragging rights. And hopefully, he can do more movies taken from there. And also, when I was part of the World Economic Forum, I used these beneficiaries to let them see what their colleagues are doing in the global community. Let's expose them. Let's give them opportunity that I actually couldn't even have myself when I was in their prime. And finally, is the what I call the carnival, where I have taken over 20 A-list artists to actually now inspire them. This time, because some of these people are younger ones, if you have done all this mental work and all that, you're not giving them reason to have fun, it's not enough. So I take both secular and gospel musicians into my village. And all of this happened in my village. So you have 10,000 youths gather with Flavor, AYs, Asimi, all the biggest artists, MI, If you know, all of them have performed in my village. So, and these are the things I was doing that actually earned me the king of the youth that I am called today. They pressured me to get into politics and be the next governor.
Okay, so we will be slightly quicker now. So let me quickly come to this. Obviously, people online have been asking this question. Now, if you become the governor of Anambra State, I am putting it in this form. Will you be patronizing locally made cars and vehicles? And if so, do you have plans to put certain percentages what government, your state, or rather your government, would set aside to patronize the locally manufactured, vehicle, be them vehicles, goods, and other services? What would that percentage be? For instance, would it be fair to say that in your first year in office, that 25% of the fleet being bought in Anambra State will be locally made?
Maazi, I don't make political. I don't make political commitments like that. I bring. I will tell you what I'll do. I bring reasoning. I bring objectivity. I bring candor to what I say, because I usually like to say less and do more, and not the other way around. And so, will I patronize locally made? Not just cars, everything. Yes is a big answer. As a matter of fact, if you go to my fleet of vehicles already, you see innocent vehicle well represented there. I did that to show patriotism, and also because I know he's doing an excellent job with the product. And so what I want here to talk about is competitiveness. I want Anambra and Nigerian products to be more competitive. That way you don't need to preach about this. Let it come natural. Why? Because if you have a substandard product, you expect me to buy it because it's local. Of course, we will do what we need to do to support so that you can become more competitive. Emphasis is competitiveness. How do we ensure that we can compete fairly and squarely? And if there's anything I can do as a governor to make you more competitive, I will do that. But I want you to be able to go out there, and so that if anybody tries to import anything, it will be inferior in terms of price, in terms of quality. When we are doing this right, trust me, the story will change. Every car sold in Ghana should be from Nigeria. Every car sold in Benin Republic should be from Nigeria. How do we achieve it? I want to go to that level, not this pedestal about forcing people to buy what they don't need. Because I've seen people who just in the end era, just political, let me go and have a show in the market, and that's not who I am. I want us to get to a level where we can be proud of what we are achieving. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. So quickly here, we have a couple of minutes now left. What's your, okay, I'll put it this way. Are you aware that there is illegal oil exploration in Anambra State?
Sorry, your network is breaking there. Can you repeat your question again?
Okay. Now, are you aware that there is an illegal oil exploration in Anambra State?
I am aware in the Obaru axis, the lot of illegality is going on there. And trust me.
Already there is these, there is an environmental degradation already happening. Now, the question to you is, what will your government do to ensure that that doesn't continue?
Stop the illegality. Stop the illegality and bring people to book. Simple. I think we need to move to where we behave like we live in a civilized society. I honestly think that a lot of times what people do is compromise themselves. You see, I want to share this with you, and it's important. So it's not just about this oil thing. If you want to curb corruption in Nigeria, you've got to get someone with the right content, right character, right compassion to be your leader. You also need to make sure the person emerges through the right process. These two are important. If you have a right person imagine through a wrong process is a problem. You have the wrong person, imagine through the right process is a problem. What you need is the right person, imagine through the right process. What is the right process? What does it do for you? It helps you to exert independence, objectivity. If your hands are tied, if, for instance, those bunkers, those illegal miners are people who are funding my election, they would have tied me down. They would have signed agreements away. So I wouldn't be able to do the right thing when I get there. But when you come with independence of mind, which is what I'm coming with, there's no godfather around me. There's nobody who is claiming victory. The only person claiming victory for what I'm doing is God. And go and ask around. How did I emerge as candidate of PDP? Because it was through a transparent process. There's nobody I can say no to. That level of independence is what you need to do the right thing. And that's why I can bet you don't have anybody running in this election that's anywhere near what I can do, I can achieve, because I am not just somebody with the right level of emotional intelligence, but I'm also imagining and coming out through the right process.
Okay. Now, the second to the last question will be, do you have any plans to revive the public water system in Anambra State, especially the city of Onitsha? Obviously, no, none is existing, but at least in Onitsha, many years ago, we did have them. And sadly, there is no public water anymore. Do you have any plans?
100%. What I was talking about on the commercial hub making it functional, I actually did mention water system, not just borehole and the mess that we create with boreholes, but rather the system. Obviously, a lot of work will be required. I can promise you that we will do the necessary things. I haven't studied in depth. It's an area that I'm prioritizing, hopefully from maybe November 7 up to March 17, the period of my transition, by the grace of God. It's going to be enough time to dive deeper and understand the feasibility. Feasibility is important. How much will be required to be done? Where will the money come from? If it's something we can fund within the limited resources we have, we will phase this out. If it's something we need to partner with multilateral and bilateral agencies at the start, we would also do so. But I want to enhance the functionality of Onitsha, from the power infrastructure to water infrastructure to gas infrastructure to road infrastructure. These four, and I will add to it also the technology infrastructure. These 5 major parts of infrastructure will be a priority, and that's part of our Anambra Chapel dream for Onitsha.
Thank you very much. So in 30 seconds, would you be able to speak to those who are calling for election boycott? Now, what will be your argument to convince them to vote for you instead of boycotting the election in 30 seconds?
I have to say this to you. If you're comfortable with the status quo, if Anambra is that of your dream today, then maybe you should boycott the election. But guess what? What I see around and what you see around should enrage you, should get you even more angry. And the only other alternative is a change to positive leadership, dynamic leadership, a future that we can all be proud of. And the only person who can do that is somebody who has the right character, competence, capacity, and credibility and compassion. Person who understands what needs to be done. And where he also doesn't understand, is humble enough to ask the right questions and assemble the right people around him to get the things done. I can promise you, Valentine Ozigbo will do things that will make you proud as an Anambra person. And God bless you.
Thank you very much. And before my last question, before I leave you, is, are you able to make Anambra a promise of tangible and concrete things you will do in 100 days? You know why I keep making it? I keep coming back to this. As a project manager, I have worked so much with work breakdown structure, timeline. So I kind of work in segments. I say these are the things that will happen within the next 30 days, deliverables. So is there anything Anambra and Anambrarians, by the time you are sworn in, to say April, June, next year, this is what they would see in 100 days?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we have articulated our 100 days agenda from appointing the team, a credible team, on day one of my taking over, to focusing on those key priority areas. What we need to do in the educational side, what we do on the road side, what we're also going to do on the healthcare side, to make sure also we clean up the mess around the markets in Onitsha and other axes, just bringing sanity and discipline across. And we want to actually articulate this, what we can be doing weekly. And what I also intend to do, to say to the Anambra people, if I don't do these things in the 100 days, in the 1 year, and ultimately in the 4 years, I'll be the first to not go for re-election. Hold me accountable by my words. And ultimately, I want to see an Anambra where we cannot be proud of. So the first 100 days, we're going to be focusing on some quick wins to make sure our roads are more durable, that we're more secure, and we have discipline around our major markets. And also start setting the tone for proper governance. Start setting the agenda for things like, local government elections. How quickly we can do that will also depend on how we're able to, galvanize people around our common vision. And so that hopefully within a year, we are done with instituting the right. Because what I want to go for is competency across board. I want us to have a competent governor, a competent cabinet, a competent local government chiefs, and eventually down to a competent, town union executives. When we do that, we can all fire on all cylinders. That's the only way we can catch up with the rest of the world. It is time for us to do the impressionable things that we can all be proud of.
Thank you very much. That's a very fine place to leave it. That's been 90 minutes speaking to you. It has been my pleasure to have you here. And it obviously, I must say that I am quite impressed by the content of the questions so far answered. Now, again, for many of you watching, this is Njenje Media TV once more, and this is Anambra Decide 2021, Meet the Candidates series, powered by Njenje Media TV. And this series, as I said, is powered by Njenje Media Group. Today, we started our conversation. This is a one-on-one conversation with Valentine Ozigbo, who is a Nigerian politician from Anambra State, Agwata to be precise, and a business executive. He's also the immediate past president and chief executive officer of Transcorp PLC. Thank you very much, Val, as I fondly call you. It's been my pleasure to have you once here.
Thank you. And let me urge you, come home and vote for PDP ultimately. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
All right, thank you.